Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
Pizza, pizza! That's right, Pizza Pizza, the slogan from Little Caesars, founded in May of 1959.
I'll trust you that that's correct.
Well, you know what else came out in May of 1959? That's right, Action Comics number 252. Remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Metallo on Superboy?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first appearance of Metallo.
The very first appearance.
That's right. Remember in the next coming weeks when we talked about Supergirl?
Sure.
It hasn't happened yet, so I don't know how you're remembering it unless you're secretly a time traveler.
I'm not a time traveler.
I believe you. I have no reason to doubt your trust.
We just want to we may want to move to Europe for no reason.
But
nukes. Anyway.
So we are reviewing the first issue, or reviewing Action Comics number 252. It is the first appearance of Metallo and Supergirl.
That's right.
So I say we just get into it.
Let's go straight into it.
All right. So, what did you like best about this issue?
Let's see. Best about the issue is, and this is, I kind of feel like I have to pick which story I liked, because Action Comics, back in the day, they would have multiple issues.
Right, it was the anthology type series.
We didn't review anything to do with Kongorilla.
I read it.
You read it?
Yeah.
I did read Little Pete.
I didn't. Little Pete wasn't in the one I have. I read the Comixology version, which had the first appearance of Metallo, the story of Kongorilla, and the Supergirl's first appearance.
And I read a scanned original or a reprint or something.
You mean you bought it legally?
Yes, it was totally legal, I can assure you. And so this it was either the original or a reprint, whatever. It still had the original ads and things like that, and the original coloring. So there were parts when Supergirl legs were colored blue. It looked like she's wearing pants and stuff. And in mine had a little Pete adventure. And it was actually very confusing because Little Pete is a scamp who was at a friend's party, and the friend's mom was trying to get him to eat something. He's like, "No, I'm full. Well, take some candy. My pockets are full too." That was the joke.
That's a pretty good joke. Well, you missed by not reading Kongorilla.
Yeah.
A very exciting story starring Congo Bill, who has a magic ring that when he rubs it, he switches minds with a gorilla. And you may not believe this, but Congo Bill found himself in quite the pickle. He was locked in a cell by himself. Luckily, they separated him from all the other prisoners, so no one noticed that his body was taken over by a gorilla. If they had locked him up with all the other prisoners, as would normally make sense, everyone would have been like, why is Congo Bill acting like a gorilla?
It really reminds me of that episode of Quantum Leap where Sam leapt into an ape or a monkey or something.
I don't remember that. That's
the next episode, is the Quantum Leap retrospective. But
yes.
This is not a Quantum Leap podcast, unfortunately.
Or a Congo Bill podcast. It is a Little Pete podcast.
It is now a Little Pete.
No, this is Supes On, where every week we take a look at something related to the Man of Steel. This week we're looking at some stuff related to the Woman of Steel, and we will be continuing on with that for the next few weeks.
Right. You are listening to this, and this is us branching out, covering more of the Superman family, all related back to Clark. It's all rooted in Clark. Don't you worry, Supes On fanatics. We will touch a little bit upon Congo Bill because he is the greatest action hero of all time.
Yes.
And we'll get to that later, I guess. But in this, my favorite part, actually getting to what you asked earlier.
Yes.
My favorite part, I think I would have to
first,
say...
are we talking about the Metallo story or the Supergirl story?
I'm going to go with the Metallo story.
Okay.
Because here's my favorite part in the Metallo story. Was when, if you haven't read it, and I don't understand why you wouldn't have read it, John Corbin, who is Metallo, he's driving around by himself, thinking to himself, I just committed the perfect crime. And he's sort of describing this crime. So if you're a kid, you're like, so that's how you get away with crimes.
To play devil's advocate, he wasn't just driving around thinking about it. There was a radio show.
Right.
He was talking about how somebody else just got pinched for a crime.
Yeah.
And how he was like, I'm cleverer than that. I'm not going to get pinched for that reason.
Yeah. It reminds me of when OJ wrote that book. Here's how I would have murdered those people. Like, I don't know. I don't know about that, but anyway, so he drives he gets into like a wreck, and and it was Kismet that this professor and his like housemaid were just driving around. She was driving, by the way, and the only reason that was of note to me is because this came out in 1959, and it was kind of an odd sight to see the woman driving in 1959. The guy was pretty old, so
I don't know if you know this, but women got the vote back in the 20s.
Still, I mean, it's the 50s, so...
And this comic doesn't take place in Saudi Arabia, where that's still quite the sight to behold.
That's where Superman is needed the most. But this is not a political podcast. So anyway, the professor, he finds Metallo, right? And he has a stroke, and... that's not my favorite part. I'm just kind of explaining what happened.
But that's also not what happened. He doesn't find Metallo and have a stroke. He
Those
finds John Corbin, turns him into Metallo, and then right before he can reveal what will keep Metallo running forever, he has a stroke.
Those two things did happen. He finds Metallo, and he does have a stroke.
He doesn't find I'm playing devil's advocate. He does not find Metallo. He creates Metallo.
He found the materials that would make Metallo.
He did find a corpse. That's correct.
He found a guy at death's door.
Yes.
But my absolute favorite part is when the Professor Vale, is describing to his housemaid / chauffeur like what he's going to do, and she's like, "I don't understand medicine,
but do what you can to save his life.
I'm just a housemaid. I have a license to drive, and that's about it."
That was very true. She was just like, I don't understand all that man talk. But you do what you can to save him.
It wasn't even like, I don't understand the complex mechanics of your experiments.
No.
Like, I don't understand medicine, like aspirin? What? So that was my favorite. What was your favorite part of either story?
So my favorite, well, we'll go to the Supergirl one later, because that, you know, my favorite part on that one.
Well, yes.
But my favorite part on the Metallo story, I think it's when they're talking about, so basically there's a scene, well, they do a nice little setup where Clark's getting ready to go save a submarine, and he's like, I hope Lois is safe, because she's been writing a story about mobsters. And then the next panel is her and John Corbin walking out of the planet, and mobsters trying to shoot her, but they hit Metallo, and she instantly is like, this has to be Superman. And he's like, oh, what luck. And then he's like, really, if I didn't have this mustache, I could pass as Superman. And they give us this great big close-up panel of his face, just to let all of us as the audience be like, yes, he could be. He could pass as Superman's twin.
Yes, John Corbin with his creeper stash could be Superman.
But I just like, man, anybody, if somebody just had on like a bulletproof vest, Lois would just throw themselves at them.
Lois would just be throwing herself onto whoever she thought.
No, I take it back. My favorite part of this is immediately, just like everybody it seems, and all of these things that we do, what's the first thing Metallo does? I'm indestructible. Applies for a job at the Daily Planet.
That's what you do.
He's a criminal with strength, with, like, you know, superhuman strength, and he's like, I need an honest job.
Yeah, I was waiting, and maybe I missed it, but like, was there some ulterior motive?
Nope. He just wanted a job at the Daily Planet.
It's like, I've always wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
I still want to commit crimes.
But now I'll have a police scanner to know where it's like the opposite of Superman. He'll be at the planet to know where all the cops are going, so he can go the other way.
That's true.
That would actually be a good story. It's probably been done. Write us in at soupsonpodcast@gmail.com to let us know what comic that is, so we can read it for our own enjoyment.
All you Metallo historians out there, tweet at us at soupsonpodcast. You can also Instagram us as well. So this is very interesting. The first of Metallo. Cool. Not my favorite Metallo I've seen so far. Hard to top the Superboy Metallo. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, and let's not forget Brian Austin Green.
Boy, those are too hard. I mean, it feels like he kind of gets better as the years go by.
It does.
The cartoon one, I never really got into that.
The like super robotic one.
Yeah, I mean,
it's okay.
This one was cool because they say uranium is what he needs for his heart at first. It's kind of cool that they did that. They didn't just go straight up kryptonite.
Well, he did say there are two materials.
Well, yeah.
One is uranium, but you have to take one of these pills every day. And then he's like, and the second material you need is stroke. And then we come to find out it's kryptonite.
Yeah, it's interesting that they just didn't go, and you need kryptonite to live. It's like they kind of had to work up to it. It was like a part of the story. I'm like, that's an interesting take.
And I imagine back then that would have been quite the reveal. It's
Yeah.
like, oh man, he's going to have to get uranium and all that. Oh, that's going to be hard. He's going to run out. Wait, kryptonite works? Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think if Metallo was a little smarter, he could have killed Superman many times.
I will say this, though. There was one sort of big plot hole. So, Mr. May 1959 writer, this is my letter to the editor. How come as soon as he removes the uranium from his chest at the beginning, he instantly becomes weak and is almost dying, and we see that multiple times? But when he puts the fake kryptonite into his chest, he's able to still, like, go all the way over to Lois's house and, like, do all of this other stuff without feeling weak. And then all of a sudden, right at the opportune time, realize that it's fake.
Right. The fight I want to see? Kongorilla versus Metallo. I think that's what
There's no fight. Congo Bill is the mind of Kongorilla.
Oh. It's so high concept. I don't know if I can keep up.
So let's talk about what powers he used in the Metallo story.
Okay, so I have, of course, super strength.
Yeah.
Flight.
Yes.
Invulnerability.
Yes.
I'm looking through here.
There's one other one you're missing that I know of.
Telescopic vision? Did he use that? I believe
he did use telescopic vision. There's still one more.
Super breath.
Super breath. Let's talk about this and whether or not this would count as cheating. I feel like Superman cheated in this. There was a submarine who was going to break the world record for the longest submerged, subride in history, as submariners constantly do. They had a failure where they ran out of air. Their oxygen was depleting. Superman dove down under and blew air through the torpedo tank so that they would have, and he blew in enough air for 6 men to survive, for 100 men to survive for another 6 days. And they're like, all right, now we can easily beat that record.
See, it should have an asterisk by their record.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so amazing that they're breathing Superman breath.
Yeah.
Superman air.
Yeah.
But that's Superman just saying, like, yeah, you guys worked hard.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give you a little nudge. Superman won't tell nobody. So I'm thinking, like, would you consider this an inefficient use of the powers? Because he did save them, but he also could have just lifted the submarine up out of the water.
It's not inefficient. He did it because he also wanted to get back to try to stop Metallo. So he was trying to deal with the situation as quickly as possible. And so he breathed the air in there. I think it's very efficient. Rather than getting the sub, finding a place to put it, all that stuff, he's like, look, here's some air. You guys are fine for now. I got to go stop Metallo.
Did he... I'm looking now, and there's another... I have a second favorite part that I just now realized. It looked like he just sort of like breathed underwater, like he just blew air into the water. Looked kind of odd.
Yeah, it does.
My second favorite part of this is when Clark has to make an excuse to change into Superman. He compresses his clothes
into a Super
Bowl, and then stuffs them in a pouch
in his cape,
sewn into his cape.
That was standard for years.
So you could never see it, but Superman has this baggy, like, just pouch sagging all the time.
And I know what you're thinking, but what about the shoes? They specifically mentioned the shoes were made of a special fiber.
And the glasses? Clark's glasses? He just folds
That's
them up.
not mentioned. Writers, answer us both things, please. What happened to the glasses?
I demand to know what he did.
Let's while we're talking about that, can you read one or two of the actual letters to the editors that appeared in this issue?
Right. So the copy I read, again, this is a scan of the actual print, and in it were letters to the editor, and these were so good. I'm going to pull these up right now, and these are people, these are readers. They would write in, and I don't know, some of these sound pretty suspect. Okay, I'm going to read probably the best one here. Okay, dear editor, in your recent story, The Man No Prison Could Hold, there is a scene wherein Superman rescues Jimmy from a rocket sent into outer space. How is this possible? When at the time of the rescue...
You need to read the first one first.
Yeah, you're great. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Everyone pretend you didn't hear that.
All right, so you know something happens with Jimmy and a rocket. But the first letter is, Dear Editor, the February issue of Action Comics shows Superman using a TV set in outer space. How is this possible if there is no atmosphere in outer space for TV waves to go through? Signed, Edward Abramson from Watertown, New York. And the editor's response, You'd better brush up on your physics, Eddie. TV waves can function even in a vacuum.
And then now your follow-up question?
Follow-up. Dear Editor, in your recent story, The Man No Prison Could Hold, there is a scene wherein Superman rescues Jimmy from a rocket sent into outer space. How is this possible when at the time of the rescue, Jimmy was without an oxygen helmet and would have suffocated immediately upon being exposed to outer space, if not frozen? Signed, Bruce Barrington from Calgary, Canada. Editor's response, We'd better brush up on our physics. No apology to Eddie from New York, though. They just gave it to Eddie.
Well, they're like, look, we need to brush up on our physics, but we're no Eddie.
We're no Eddie. Here's one more quick one that I'm just going to blow through here. Dear Editor, if Superman was born on the planet Krypton, how can pieces of that planet weaken and be able to kill him? Why does kryptonite, as these fragments are called, possess this property? Fair question.
Yeah.
Let's see what they say. My thing reloaded, so I have to go find it, and it's not that important. We'll never know.
We'll never know. While he desperately searches through...
God, my thumbs are just scanning. My thumbs are bleeding.
So, John, overall, did you like this first appearance of Metallo? Did you think this was an enjoyable story?
I mean, for a 50s comic, it's wordy as all hell. And my theory on that is kids back in the day didn't have the internet and shit, so
this was over, the first part of the story was, I believe 14 pages.
Yeah.
And in that 14 pages, we see the introduction of Metallo. We get him as a criminal. We get the fact that he murdered someone. We have him having a car crash, a scientist turning his body into metal, the same scientist having a stroke, Metallo getting hired on at the Daily Planet, him hitting on Lois. We have Lois writing a story about the mob getting shot at, Superman saving a sub from drowning, Superman saving a construction site from getting crushed, Metallo stealing uranium from multiple places, Metallo imitating Superman to steal uranium from a military base, Metallo setting up a kryptonite ploy to try to kill Superman, Superman escaping from that, Metallo going to confront Lois at her home, and Superman saving Metallo from himself with using kryptonite.
It was pretty action-packed.
That's 14 pages.
That's an efficient use of powers right there.
That is an efficient use of
writer
powers
and artist powers. I mean, enjoyable, kind of retro type of deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was as short as it was, because some of these are just like a nightmare to read. I think I could read like this, but if you gave me a book, like a thick book full of these, I would never finish it.
I have several thick books full of these. Like, I have Superman Family, Superman Family 2. I have The Trial of Flash. Trial of Flash, highly recommended by Supes on Podcast.
They become such a chore after a while. Like, I tried to read like an Avengers one back in the day, couldn't do it. I tried to read a Teen Titans one, and it was funny because it was like back in the 60s, and people were saying like, check the scene, dude, or man, or whatever. And dig it. So that was kind of funny, but overall, I'm like, this is kind of a nightmare. There's one other letter I'm not going to get into.
Well, did you find the answer to the one?
The answer to the one, why does kryptonite hurt people? All the editor says is it's basically saying we'll cover this in a future story. So not really anything.
What a tease. What a build-up for nothing, John.
What a boo-boo. Speaking of boo-boos, there is one that says, Dear Editor, I think you made a boo-boo, which is awesome. In the November issue of Action Comics, you show Superman melting diamonds that are in a glass case. He melts the diamonds, all right, but how come he doesn't melt the glass case through which his X-ray vision passes en route?
Good point. Good question. Who asked such a great question?
Eddie Goldstein from Los Angeles. Another Eddie. And this one, they don't tear a new asshole. They say, you're right, only Clark Kent's glasses, which are made of super plastic from the planet Krypton, are immune to the heat of his X-ray vision. So there you go. I hope we all learned something today.
We did.
We learned about super plastic.
from Krypton. So let's talk about the Supergirl one.
Yeah.
Not to be fair, not a whole lot of sustenance here. It wasn't not as much happened.
It was more like an introduction
It was an introduction.
to Supergirl.
So we immediately have Superman failing to save somebody.
Yes.
He sees a rocket crashing to Earth and is like, oh man, that's going to hit there. I need to turn into Superman. Sheds his outer garments, as they like to say.
Yes.
And it ends up crashing before he can get there. And the only thing he can think of is, man, if I had been in there, I would have been fine. But whoever's in there is definitely dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then Supergirl pops out, not dead.
Not dead. Not a scratch on her. Costume still intact.
Yep.
No tears. And
as the cover says, it must be an illusion.
must be an illusion. Superman must be tripping balls. He's seeing a Supergirl. I just wanted there to be a panel like after Supergirl explains, like, I'm really your cousin. I really want Superman to just go, God damn it, she's my cousin. What are the odds?
Well, she does, when she does decide on her secret identity of Linda Lee, his first thought is, just like my ex-girlfriend Lana Lang and my current girlfriend Lois Lane. I wonder if that's just a coincidence.
It's not weird on Krypton. That's
Not weird. It's not weird on Krypton.
In fact, I hope the new sci-fi show Krypton, like the prequel series, it's just inbred, just inbreeding, just shows so like how Superman comes from like this kind of fucked up family.
It's not normal on Krypton. It's just normal in the House of El.
Yeah, just like the House of El is like the black sheep, and like by the time like I don't know, Jor-El and Lara, they were actually brother and sister.
Right. So I know what you're thinking. You all know the story is Supergirl sent off at the same time of her cousin, but accidentally got there later. Well, you are wrong. That is not what happened for the first.
No, when the planet Krypton, or Krypton, as I'm sure they pronounce it here, when it blew up, a huge chunk of the planet.
It wasn't really a huge chunk. They specifically described it as a neighborhood.
That's still like relatively speaking, it's a big chunk.
Okay.
To like me, if this whole neighborhood, this whole block that we're in right now, were to just be jettisoned from the planet, that's still pretty big.
That's true.
But so this relatively big, depending on who you ask, chunk of the planet gets blown off, and the people there survive, and they also have gravity and a pocket of air that they get to breathe.
But how could they eat?
They had a food machine.
That's right, a food machine. A giant metal cube. That was the food machine.
No one goes hungry on the planet Krypton.
But guess what? Something bad happened.
That's right. Over time, they fight. They I guess.
Nope, not over time. That first night.
Oh, that's right. Well,
the very first night, as night fell, the entire planet's surface became kryptonite.
Well, time did pass, so technically over time it's still happening.
Okay. All right.
Depending on who you ask. That's
yeah. So the first night, the thing was kryptonite. But luckily, Zor-el was quick thinking, and they had giant metal rolls of lead that also happened to be with them that they were able to cover up the kryptonite with. And several years later, he took a wife.
Yeah, he took a wife.
And they had a daughter.
They had a baby.
If you want to know how that happened, ask your parents.
Ask your parents on that. Get your parents' permission. Have them write us an email, and then we'll describe it to you with pictures.
Yes. So, so that was Supergirl. So when she, as it specifically states in the comic, as she reached girlhood, there was a bit of a danger. Some meteors started smacking into the lead, exposing the kryptonite from below. So Zor-el's wife, who, if I'm not mistaken, was never actually named. I'm almost positive she was never given a name. It was just mother wife.
Mother
wife. She started looking for another planet for Care to go to, and discovers Earth, and studies Earth long enough to learn the language and realize that, hey, Superman's from Krypton, we'll send her there.
Yeah, it's like, they have this super telescope.
Yep.
That they just find. I'm not seeing a name for this poor woman.
Nope, she wasn't named in this issue.
Not even important enough to have a name.
No. So, of course, what happens as soon as Clark hears this? I will tell you what. As it says in the comic, it is the most important thing that has ever happened in Superman's life. He has a living relative. He tells her they will always have each other. He will be like a big brother to her. And so she's like, oh, this is fantastic. I get to go live with you. And he's like, well, actually, no. You see, I have a secret identity. We'll get more into it. Let's see if you can fly. And so then, while testing her flight speed, this is my favorite part, this whole scene. Testing her flight speed, they happen to fly over to an orphanage.
Yeah, just happened to... Superman said, hey, what do you know? An orphanage.
Hey, you know what? You could stay here forever.
Yeah, it's like Superman's like, I can't have this girl cramping my style while I'm trying to make it with Lois.
Yeah, because there's no plausible explanation he could have used that would have ruined his secret identity. Hey, my cousin is coming to live with me. What?
Yeah.
Clark Kent doesn't have a cousin. Everyone knows that.
Sure. I mean, like, come on. It's like... Clark's like, whoa, live together? No way.
No way. We're not living together.
No.
Actually, I wasn't quoting the comic, John. I'm sorry, you can't move in.
Damn it. I guess I'll just live in an orphanage.
Let's see if you can drive over there.
Is there an age cutoff for the orphanage?
You're not allowed at orphanages anymore.
That's for the judge to decide. Who did?
So that was essentially no, that's not essentially everything that happens. She goes in under her new disguise of Linda Lee with a brown wig and cleans her room.
Exciting. Like, imagine if you're like a girl and you're like, I wish there was a Superman character that I could look up to. And like, hey, finally, Supergirl, what luck? And what does she do? She cleans her room like a good girl.
But we get her powers. We get super strength. We get X-ray / heat vision.
Yeah.
We get flight, speed.
She uses super hearing, super breath.
She
uses super
breath
on the mirror.
On the dust. No, she uses X-ray heat vision on the mirror.
Which got me to thinking, like, okay, so back in the day, X-ray vision, when she used it, it heats up.
Yeah, that's how it always used to be.
Like, theoretically, if she's staring at something for a long time, it would just... Like, if she stared at the other children in the orphanage, she's got her spies on them, which is creepy. And so she would just sit there and stare at that wall for, like, a long time. That wall, like, would just be burst into flames, or it just would melt or something.
I think so. The way it's done in most of the comics is they can sort of decide on the amount of heat they use on it. So it's not like a blanket, like laser wave.
And for all we know, that's still the case. It just never really brought up. Like, whenever Superman uses his heat vision, he could be seeing through shit.
That's true.
Maybe. Yeah, like, why would he ever choose to explain this?
Yeah, there'd be no reason.
Except in his inner monologues when he explains fucking everything that he does.
And he definitely can, decide how hot his heat vision is. Because otherwise in Smallville, he couldn't have heated up Alicia's hot cocoa for her. in that nice romantic moment in season 4.
Things are so good for them.
Good old Alicia Kent.
Good old Alicia Kent, the true love and the true wife of young Clark.
One day we'll do our Alicia trilogy, and I'll be the happiest Supes On reviewer ever.
And if anybody has any suggestions of what type of episode or trilogies we should do, what's that email address?
supesonpodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. Or Jeremy's personal email address.
supesonpodcast@gmail.com.
Send all your personal letters to the editor asking, like, Jeremy, if...
I noticed an editing mistake in episode 3.
Like, and open your letters like, I think you made a boo-boo.
I think he made a boo-boo. Yes.
Grief.
So overall, John, is this issue for you Supes on, Supes off?
I'm gonna say, sometimes when it's like the first appearance, I kind of want to give it like a pass. I'm gonna say the Metallo one is Supes on.
Yeah, Metallo one is,
The Supergirl one, it pains me to say this, but I gotta give it Supes off. Because Superman's reaction to his cousin just sort of like makes him the biggest super dick, I think.
That's true.
So I'm like, as awesome as this is, maybe this is why people thought this is the first appearance of Red K because we got a little bit of awesome.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention that. So here's an interesting stat. Here's the reason we're reviewing this episode at all. So we've just done the Red K trilogy, and I thought it'd be interesting to look up the first appearance of Red Kryptonite in the comics. And Wikipedia said it was Action Comics 252. It's not. I bought that issue, and it's the first appearance of Metallo and Supergirl, though. And I was like, well, that works pretty well, too.
That's actually even better.
Yeah.
But the mystery still remains of the first appearance of Red Kryptonite.
And so the thing is like Red Kryptonite, as we talked about in the Red K trilogy, is in the comics, it always had a weird, strange effect on him for 24 to 72 hours. And the first appearance of Red K that does that is very well documented. I want to say off the top of my head, I think it was like 289, where he split into Superman and Superboy. However, the very first appearance of Red Kryptonite did not have that effect. It was just the same as Green K, but like twice as effective. But nowhere seems to know when that is or what that is. I couldn't find it online. So please, if you really do know that, let us know at supesonpodcast@gmail.com.
We're sick of living in such mystery and just confusion, living in such boo-boos.
So I will say for me, overall, I'm going to say this is Supes on. And I'm giving it a full-on Supes on with the Supergirl included. And this is my reasoning of why. Obviously, the Metallo story was just fun. It was a really good. Good introduction. Great story. This was an anthology. So this was Little Pete. This was Congarella.
Yeah.
This was the Metallo. The Supergirl one was a bonus tacked-on story at the end that was really meant to give me a preview, and Supergirl became a regular in that after that. And I think for a quick character introduction, it's fine. It does kind of make Superman look a little bit like a dick, but at the same time, it's not supposed to be about Superman. It's supposed to be about Supergirl.
Yeah, it's funny. At the end, like, Supergirl will be appearing in the following issues. I'm like, hope Supergirl works. Hope people like it.
Yeah.
Because we're going through with it.
And it's going strong today. Even Jeb Bush now thinks Supergirl is hot, as he...
Did he really?
Yeah, when in an interview, they asked him about what superpower he would like, and he's like, oh, I'm not sure. I saw the preview for that new Supergirl, though, and she looks hot.
So he wants the power to be hot?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you just got to believe in yourself, Jeb. Confidence. That's the real superpower.
It is. But so stick around. We'll have some super raps coming up for you. John, any final words?
Just this one letter says, it states that Congarilla was like the most popular action hero of all time.
No, Congo Bill's the most popular action hero of all time. And Congarella was a fresh idea that helped keep him relevant.
So in 1959, Congo Bill was the shit.
Congo Bill, it actually was a pretty good little read. If you do get this, read Congo Bill. It was funny. It was a nice little read.
So stay tuned for...
It was Congo on.
It was Congo's on. And the Congo's on and on and on.
All right, thanks. Stick around for the rap.
Going out my cranium, need that uranium. I don't know medicine, professor is dead again. Fool Lois with my creeper stash. Take her home so we can smash. Enough about Corbin and his edge. Time to take Kara to the orphanage.
She's got powers just like me. What a threat that she could be. I know I'll abandon her. Live with me, no I'll deter. Take her to an orphanage. Force on her a brand new personage. Take a wig and a brand new name. That's right, you heard me, you're playing my game. Excuse me, Superman, but you just turned your cousin into a brunette with the initials LL? It's not weird on Krypton. It's not weird on Krypton. It's not weird on Krypton. It's perfectly normal on Krypton.